Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. My name is Mary Barad. My husband John and I joined the church about 4 years ago. We are of different religious heritage, and First UU offers us both a common path forward in our spiritual growth in a community of acceptance, fellowship, and love. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information, and inspiration. To begin, let's acknowledge this geographical place where we are currently located, the home and traditional lands of the Tonkawa and Payeya peoples of the Cowiltican Band, the original indigenous stewards of this land, on which now is located San Antonio, Texas, claimed as part of the United States of America. At our church, we believe and act in a universal love that binds us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice and for our planet. Our faith is all-inclusive, and all means all. If you are new to us or visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to sign in on the chat stream. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you. Wherever you are on your life's journey, we hope you will find your place with us.
I'm Tess Bobo, and I'm an at-large member of your Board of Trustees. We are having listening sessions with the board every third Sunday of each month after church. The board will be available via Zoom in an open forum for discussions about the church. This session will replace the coffee hour on the third Sunday of each month. Please bring your questions, concerns, suggestions, and compliments. We want to hear from you.
The flaming chalice unites our members in worship and symbolizes the spirit of our faith.
We are all called.
Called by the wind,
The freezing rain.
the naked trees,
The winter moon.
called by the sidewalk,
The playground.
the laughing children,
The street lights.
called by our appetites and gifts,
Our needs and challenges.
called by the bottle,
The needle.
the powder,
The pill.
the game,
The bet.
the need,
The want.
the pain,
The cure.
the love,
The hope.
the dream,
Called by the spirit of love and hope.
and intentions of purposes for our lives.
We are all called.
What will we choose?
How will we answer?
Let's recite our covenant that binds us together as a religious community. The words can be found on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Today, as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's life and contributions, it is also important to remember his struggle and what a truly controversial figure he was among fellow civil rights activists as well as those who opposed civil rights. Dr. King believed the most significant opposition he received was from white moderates who denied they were, quotes, racist, yet who were, in his words, more devoted to order than to justice. This devotion to order remains one of the biggest obstacles today for Black Lives Matter and the protests of police brutality and our criminal justice system. Despite the electoral advances and successes widely influenced by Martin Luther King and others who are inspired by his work, there is still much to be done. We must seek to address and act to advance concrete changes in our society and all forms of racial injustice in its systems of public safety, education, healthcare, housing, criminal justice, and economics. We are here Now, generations later, remembering Martin Luther King, and the struggle still continues.
Please join us in a responsive reading by Erica Hewitt called We Speak the Language of Love. Michael will read the stanzas and we will respond with We Speak the Language of Love.
We arrive from many different experiences and backgrounds. Some of us have trouble speaking. Others are still so long they're still learning to talk. Some of us speak English as a second language, and others of us can speak several foreign languages. All of us share this in common. We speak the language of love. In the moments before worship begins, and again as we depart and return to the service of life, we greet one another with kind words, and we chat about the days behind us and days to come, and we speak the language of love. We lift our voices in song, not to sing perfectly or in tune, but to hear and feel our voices form a life-giving sound, and we speak the language of love. We form a web of compassionate listening when individuals among us, embodying vulnerability, name the concerns that grip their hearts and the joys that buoy their spirits. We speak the language of love. At times, our voices clash. We disagree. Tension enters our voices as we make room for different beliefs, different opinions, different perspectives. Through it all, it is our intention that we speak the language of love. In this congregation, we welcome a multiplicity of truths and invite them to be named out loud. We prophesy, summoning the age when justice and peace will be evident all around us, and we speak the language of love. Let us worship together, making room for one another as whole beings, tender hearts, hungry spirits, and curious minds. With our actions and with our words, may we speak the language of love.
It's time to share our joys and sorrows. It's a way for us to connect as a community. I invite you to share a joyful event, a sorrow, or a concern by entering it on the chat string. Please let us know what is in your heart. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we come fully alive. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are heard and held in compassion. At this time of uncertainty, may we listen more deeply and grow more involved with and connected to each other. Let's join now in silent meditation as we write our joys and sorrows on the chat screen, while Jaime plays our meditation music.
Spirit of justice, God who befriends those who stand upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. We are grateful to be together this morning. We gather especially to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not only him, for there were thousands of unnamed men and women who put their lives and bodies on the line so that all may be free. And yet freedom comes at a cost, and we know that racism and homophobia, ageism and ableism, sexism and classism, and all of those often unacknowledged realities prevent us from being fully knowing one another, from creating the beloved community spoken of by the prophets and ordinary persons alike. May the work of Dr. King continue to eradicate injustice wherever, whenever we encounter it. May we continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even if we are afraid of our words will not be heard or welcomed. May the spirit of Dr. King continue to flow through our daily living. May we have the courage of Dr. King as we continue to stand up for justice, reconciliation, and truth, despite challenge and controversy. Dr. King went to the mountaintop. He saw the promised land, and he reassured us that we will get there one day. May that be no paradisiacal dream, but a reality in our own time. May it be so. Amen.
My name is Terry Chadwick, and I've been a member of First UU Church of San Antonio for about 12 years. I want to tell you the history, briefly, of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was born on January 15th, 1929, and grew up with his parents and two siblings in Atlanta, Georgia. At age 15, he graduated from high school, a segregated high school. He earned a BA degree from Morehouse College in Atlanta, a Bachelor of Divinity degree from Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, and a doctoral PhD degree in theology from Boston University. He met his future wife in Boston. Married to her, they had 2 daughters and 2 sons. At age 25, he became pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. There he was organizer for the first great Negro nonviolent demonstration, the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. Success came in 1956 when the Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation on buses was unconstitutional. This episode proved for the future that nonviolence could change society and laws. At around age 34 in 1963, Dr. King helped lead the Birmingham, Alabama movement against segregation of public facilities and for voter registration. The local and state government used mass arrests at first, but then Birmingham City Commissioner Bull Connor directed local police and firemen to use force, including horses, dogs, and batons or police sticks on demonstrators, including children. National television and newspaper images of the violence sparked an international outrage. Attorney General Robert Kennedy sent his chief civil rights assistant to negotiate. An agreement was made that the city of Birmingham would desegregate lunch counters, restrooms, drinking fountains, department store fitting rooms, and other steps would be taken. This victory, however, was met with more violence, including the bombing of the motel where Dr. King was staying and of his brother's home. 4 months later, the Ku Klux Klan bombed Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church, killing 4 young black girls. In 1965, Dr. King organized 54-mile Selma to Montgomery marches about black voter registration. Marchers were confronted with mass arrests and violence from police, state troopers, and white vigilante groups. A group of segregationists attacked the young UU minister, James Reeb. He died 2 days later from head injuries. Then President Lyndon Johnson went on national television to pledge his support to the Selma protesters and called for the passage of a new voting rights bill. The bill passed and guaranteed right to vote for all African Americans and had specific provisions banning literacy tests, and it had steps to remove poll taxes. When Dr. King was 34 years old, Time magazine named him Man of the Year, and his picture appeared on the cover of the magazine. He received the Nobel Peace Prize at age 35, the youngest ever recipient. And finally, at age 39, on April 4th, 1968, he was assassinated on the balcony of his motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He was there to lead a protest march in sympathy with striking garbage collection workers.
It's time for our invitation to generosity. And as we enter into this time, let us remember that we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we actually have to offer. Generosity begets generosity. We give to remember that we are a part of a community greater than ourselves, which is exemplified today in sharing the plate with inner city development. It's a nonprofit, community-based organization that responds to emergency, educational, and recreational needs of the neighborhood on the near west side of San Antonio in the vicinity of the Azalan Apache Public Housing Project. It's been operating in this area, the economically poorest zip code of Bexar County, since 1968. The mission of the organization is to lift the dignity of the individual. And this is done by providing critical, supportive, basic life services and inspiring persons to participate in the betterment of their neighborhood through volunteerism. With the exception of one part-time administrative assistant, the organization is run by an all-volunteer program staff and administration. Pre-COVID, the emergency food pantry served a monthly average of 180 families in crisis. And during our current restrictions, emergency food, sack lunches, and clothing are also provided to homeless people. Usually, the center provides a summer recreation program for over 300 children in the immediate neighborhood. But during last summer's restrictions, inner city development provided project kits for kids to pick up and take home. The center is planning similar kits for children to enjoy during this year's expected 2-week spring break. So I invite us now to share the plate on our online giving portal or by sending a check made out to the church with ICD on the note line.
Broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains, and our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again, and I'll rise up high like the waves quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like you're dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, and our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again for you.
In gratitude for our generosity, we celebrate our contributions to inner city development and to our church. May these bring about beneficial and compassionate results. Amen.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best when he said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." My name is Farrell Clark. I am a civil rights leader and a founder of the group Reliable Revolutionaries, a civil rights organization that fights racial, social, and economic injustices, and also inspires youth to become civically engaged by turning protest to policy. We have been at the forefront of the push for police accountability and transparency, and have been very vocal in demanding recognition for the lives lost and the families that have been forever impacted by police brutality. Our organization's efforts have been monumental in putting an end to no-knock warrants, police chokeholds, the creation of the DA's first ever civil rights investigation division, mental health response units within our police department, and the declaration of racism as a health crisis here in San Antonio. Although we've accomplished a lot, there's still so much more work to be done. We ask for your help, and we ask you to get involved. We can no longer stay silent in this time of controversy. We must stand together, and we must turn Dr. King's dream into a reality. To get involved or to contact us, follow us on Facebook by clicking the link below. Remember, all are called.
Just as the great Dr. King said, since we know that the system will not change the rules, we are going to have to change the system. This includes our system of policing, the system of qualified immunity here in San Antonio and across the nation. That's what FixSAPD is focused on. A citizen-driven initiative to take justice, accountability, and transparency into our own hands. A citizen-driven initiative to change the system of policing as we know it. FixSAPD is a grassroots nonprofit organization working on bringing better police accountability to San Antonio and across Texas through the repeals of local government codes chapters 143 and 174 through ballot initiative. For decades, these have been barriers to police accountability and have created a system in San Antonio where almost 2/3 of officers fired for misconduct get their jobs back through arbitration and settlement agreements. That number is too high. It's dangerous for citizens and good officers alike. Chapter 143 allows officers who have had complaints against them to see the complainant's information. It allows for delayed interrogations of officers and keeps us from considering an officer's full disciplinary record when choosing how to discipline them for clear and often egregious misconduct. Many of these officers who have abused and murdered citizens in the past, who have violated the rights of our good citizens, have had past incidents on their disciplinary record, establishing a pattern of behavior. Yet they were allowed to keep their jobs. These violations of rights, these harassments, these acts of misconduct have not just been against citizens, but fellow officers as well. We must change the system. It was a normal day in 2016 when Officer Matthew Luckhurst made a routine stop in downtown San Antonio. However, instead of having a normal, respectful stop with a citizen, Officer Luckhurst tried to force feed a homeless man a dog feces sandwich. The chief of police immediately fired this officer, just as any upstanding chief of police would do. That should have been the end of the story. However, Officer Luckhurst appealed the termination through arbitration and won his job back. The reason? The investigation and disciplinary process took longer than 6 months, a statute of limitation established by Chapter 143. It shouldn't matter if the incident happened 6 months ago or 7 months ago. It should only matter that an officer in uniform violated the rights of a fellow San Antonian by trying to force him to eat a feces sandwich. However, due to Chapter 143, this was not the case. We must change this system of qualified immunity of officers. It must be put to an end. Now let's move to Chapter 174, which establishes collective bargaining rights for our Police Officers Association. Time and time again, they have used these rights to ignore the city's request for better accountability. In the past negotiations, the options presented to the city were to either negotiate on healthcare cost or negotiate on police discipline, but not both. Accountability, justice, transparency, none of these are bargaining chips. They should be a given when it comes to those that protect and serve the community. Every disciplinary barrier laid out by Chapter 143 is insulated by Chapter 174 in our own police union contract. Everything in that document supersedes our own local laws and accountability measures, such as those set by our own Civil Service Commission. There is no way to successfully repeal the barriers put forth by Chapter 143 without also repealing Chapter 174 to make sure that these barriers don't still stand in a document that is largely all-powerful in our community. The successful repeal of these two chapters allows San Antonio to rewrite a brand new contract, one that protects our officers and gives them great benefits while also giving the community the accountability it deserves. It sends a message to police unions around the nation that we will no longer sit back while lives and livelihoods are lost. This past week, we turned in enough validated signatures to put Chapter 174 on the ballot this May. This is the first step in achieving police accountability in San Antonio. While we will still continue to collect signatures for the repeal of Chapter 143, we must also focus on voting yes in May for accountability. Once again, voting yes in May for accountability. Now, this will take the voice of every San Antonian in May. It will take thousands and thousands of conversations with friends, loved ones, co-workers, and neighbors. We cannot do this alone. I encourage everyone to join us at fixsapd.org to find out how you can get involved in our Get Out the Vote campaign and petition collection to bring accountability to San Antonio and across Texas. Together, we can set precedent for Texas and the nation. Together, we can, as the great Dr. King said, change the system. All are called. All are called.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
As we extinguish this light, let's reflect on the light of day and the light of our awareness. May we be reminded that everything begins on the verge of awareness. The dawn is not and then is. Sleep is and then is not. In between is the awakening. The passage of thin light between breaks open the day. The passage of thin sound between flows into the day. Too soon the numbing rumble of traffic swells. The day glares. Let the soft haze hang again across the row of morning. Wait upon the narrow moment, the first awareness of being in between. Let us live days and seasons on the thin edge of dawn, in praise that every single thing begins now. Amen.
As our prayer of thanks and benediction, I'd like to remind us all that fighting the injustice of discrimination requires a first step of recognition that there is even inequality and injustice to be fought, that there is even privilege to recognize, and that there is even justice to be attained. Dr. King gave his life for these and his intention of building beloved community here on earth. And let us take inspiration from his courageous life, for we are all in this together. And our work is on behalf of attaining this goal, where no 1 or 2% of the population or any kind of people have unfair advantage over others, where we all contribute to each other. We need to exercise empathy, which starts with admitting that we do not have the answers. We may not even understand the experiences of others. Let's be honest and admit it, and be willing to listen and walk alongside members of our human family. Fact is, that's what we are, a human family, and we all have to learn how to live together. May we each do our part, those called to follow and those called to lead. Dr. King said, "We need leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice. Not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity." May this be so.